What I'd like to do is call to order for this public hearing Monday, March the 30th, 6:05 in our council chambers. The purpose of this bylaw is to hear public comments on bylaw number 1563 and 1564. As we move on, I will need to have approval of agenda, council.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Please note that Councillor Terry Trace is not here and present at the council table. She has consistently declared a conflict of interest in this matter as she lives on that site location. I will look to open the public hearing at this time, and there is an official statement that must be read. So bear with me, folks, please. This public hearing is convened pursuant to Section 890 of the Local Government Act to allow the public to make representations to council respecting matters contained in the following proposed bylaw. We have two bylaws here before us, bylaw number 1563 and bylaw number 1564. Every one of you present who believes that your interest in the property is affected by the proposed bylaw shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard or to present written submissions respecting matters contained in the proposed bylaws. None of you will be discouraged or prevented from making your views known. However, it is important that you restrict your remarks to matters contained in the proposed bylaw. When speaking, please commence your remarks by clearly stating your name and address. The function of council at this public hearing is to listen to each of you rather than debate the merits of the proposed bylaw. After the public hearing has concluded, council may, without further notice, give whatever effect council believes proper to the representations made at this hearing. As a matter of information, please be aware that there will be no opportunity to speak or make representations to council on these bylaws between the close of this meeting and public hearing and the third reading of the bylaws. Your opportunity to speak to us and to provide us with information is now, this evening. With that, I will move forward. The developer is here and will be providing an overview of what is before us. It is a bit, just before we get up to that, how are you folks in the way in the back? Is this, I know we're really challenged with the acoustics in this room. Are you okay? No. Not at all? No. Gosh, I'm not sure what we can do to help facilitate anything. Maybe. We're going to try some maneuvering here with speakers. Is that any better? We're much better now? Okay, and we'll maybe see if we can get some of the fans or whatever they're working behind me here. So with that, for those folks who are speaking, try and clearly articulate into the microphone because it is a challenge, as I've said, with the acoustics in the room. And we want to try and make sure that everybody gets equal opportunity to be heard. This will be transcribed and put into minutes, so those can also be picked up at a later time when they're ready. Staff will be able to provide that to you. So with that, call on the developer to do that overview, please.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. Tonight I'm here representing. Good evening, Mayor and councillors. Leo Mariotto here representing Seacliff. Tonight we have a few of our team members, which I would like to introduce, and then we will do a brief presentation. I have Ian Porter, Seacliff Properties, Director of Real Estate, Jim Alders, CEI Architecture, Peter Ferguson, McLehaney Consulting to answer any questions that may arise on the civil engineering, and Mitchell Jacobson, Boulevard Transportation, for any transportation issues that may arise or the council has questions. Before we start the total presentation, Ian Porter would like to do a brief introduction of the project, and then we will carry on with the rest of the slides. Thank you.
And just to be clear, it is not a back and forth conversation between council and the folks, either presenters, anywhere across the board. This is for us to be receiving information.
Can you hear that? Okay. Good evening. What we're here for today is the previous, or the existing CD6 zoning was put in place for the Equatro project, which I think we all know went into bankruptcy. We purchased the land, the Equatro terrain and development lands, and we're here looking to rezone those to set up for the successful development of the lands over the next number of years. The proposed changes represent about 2 years, almost 2 years' work of ourselves and the planning department, community consultation, and input from a number of sources. Sorry?
Folks, I know that it's really, really challenging, but it's not helping when we're hearing remarks coming from there. I just don't know what we can do to make it any better than what it is. If you get too close to that microphone, it will feed back, and you'll just get worse.
Could I just try talking like this?
Take the mic and just remove the mic from it, and then maybe turn.
Is that better? Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll just be brief anyway. So the purpose of these requested zoning changes are really to provide for flexibility, affordability, and feasibility of the Ocean Grove project. Up on the screen, are a number of, again, the base reasons that we're doing this. Create a diversity of housing type, end up doing top quality construction and finishes, doing a smart growth development, increase in affordability by incorporating a mixture of unit sizes, having smaller footprint buildings, which means more open space, preserving, of course, the views, enhancing the natural landscape, and being respectful and basically taking advantage of the natural elements of the site and the topography, and coming up with an enhanced street layout, creating a sustainable and vibrant and livable community, and, of course, adding a small retail component to the mix. The next slide, smart growth. Ocean Grove is going to be a smart growth community. Smart growth is a BC Canada Green Building Council program, and it really has 10, which are now widely accepted principles. They're listed out right there and in the package. I hope most of you have. It has been so well accepted that it's now going and being adopted nationally. And so we really believe Ocean Grove sort of epitomizes the smart growth principles.
Thank you, Ian. So as Ian mentioned, the main purpose of this application is to increase density and diversity in type of housing. The smart growth principles that you've seen before are widely recognized now throughout Canada. The current zoning that is in place provides for a total of 585 residential units. The proposed zoning requests a zoning for 795 residential units. You can see that the number of units in density has increased. However, it should be noted that due to the smaller footprints of the building and the smaller units, the actual density can be measured in two ways. One is units and also square foot, the floor area ratio. The actual floor area of what we're proposing is slightly smaller, if not equal, than the current zoning. The other main items is that the open area. The buildings that we're proposing are smaller in footprint. The existing buildings are for anywhere from 12,000 to 14,000 square feet. We are proposing slightly higher buildings with a smaller footprint of 9,000 square feet. Therefore, the open area of the site will increase by approximately 5%, which is almost 2 acres of more open area. Therefore, all this complies with the smart growth. Traffic, we did consult with Boulevard Transportation provided a new traffic study in 2014, which was provided to the City of Colwood for their review. All the required traffic and road upgrades are being provided by the developer as per the traffic study. We also did a study in Retained Boulevard to do a study on parking, because to see what this development required for parking. The result was a much lower than the City of Colwood parking standards. However, after listening to the public and speaking to staff, we've now agreed to provide the required parking as per City of Colwood bylaw. Again, the main, as mentioned before, the main purpose of the rezoning is to diverse housing mix, and also a note that a lot of people were interested in, that all the homes at Ocean Grove will be members of the community association. Therefore, they will contribute to the strata fees and community association. Benefits that were previously provided and are also, are part of this project. 13-acre waterfront park, partially constructed riparian area, and significant road upgrades to Lagoon Road mainly. But next. Okay, community benefits to come from this development. Major neighborhood safety improvements to roads, enhanced lighting for pedestrian safety, pedestrian signals, and basically all the road upgrades. Enhance of the natural landscaping by completion of the 4.5 acres of the riparian area. Total value of all the improvements to come, including development cost charges and amenity contributions, additional taxes, employment for local contractor opportunities. It's going to be valued at approximately $11 million that will be contributed to the City of Colwood. Next. Okay. There's the basically the major, what is included in the additional $11 million to come, major off-site improvements, completion of the riparian area, contribution to affordable housing, payment of development cost charges. Development cost charges alone are almost in the $5 million range. Increase in density by unit number, not square foot, increases the development cost charges. Public consultation. Seacliff has provided, since May 2013, 6 open houses to engage the public in the decisions and the layout of the project, which resulted in retention of existing temporary fire pond as an additional amenity. The reduced height of a number of buildings that were previously proposed by Seacliff, shifted and relocated buildings to fit within the current zonings and improve the views. We removed some proposed buildings altogether to improve views and reduce density. Reduction in number of total units. We had originally proposed a larger density. And compliance, and we've now complied with City of Colwood parking requirements. And we've relocated some retail uses. What was discussed before, a key part of the smart growth is to provide a mixture of housing and a mixture of uses which include commercial. I'll turn it over to Jim now, our project architect, who will explain the site plan and building heights.
Thank you, Leo. I'm Jim Alders, a local architect with CEI Architecture. We've been working for the past 2 years with the community groups through open houses and city staff to develop the design. As Leo was mentioning, we're very much staying within the original concept with where density is and building heights that is in the current approved OCP. This illustration shows those minor areas which are really towards the interior of the site where we're requesting some additional height. If we can go to the next. Okay, this site plan illustrates the current approved zone site plan on the left with the proposed site plan on the right. There's a few similarities which I'll just highlight. First, the access points are essentially the same. We have similar access off of Heatherbell, access off of Goldfinch, as well as access off of Seafield. Currently, our site plan shows it a little further down, but our intent is actually to retain the existing access point off of Seafield. The riparian area is essentially the same. We're building on what was started, and we'll be improving on that, and that will be the focus point as the design and building design develops. Next slide. Sorry, if we can go back one. So those are the similarities. The differences are there's an existing fire pond on site, which we're going to be retaining in the existing configuration. It seems to have grown on local residents and the community, so that'll be retained. It's right about here, and that's another reason for a slight reconfiguration in the road layout. There's a greater unit mix type. There's, as Leo had mentioned, reduced unit size, reduced footprints of the buildings, and that all provides for better views. In the original plan, there's very long, broad walls along the perimeter of the site, and we've looked at smaller footprints to really allow penetration of views through the site and to help views for existing buildings on site. Next slide, please. This shows the amount of green space that is going to be at Ocean Grove upon completion. There's a 17.5 acre park which had been allocated originally, and by the time we complete the riparian area, it's going to be a full 1/3 of the site that is going to be used for natural habitat. Next slide. This slide shows the extensive trail networks that are being proposed through the site and really connecting the site into the community, which are shown as those red asterisks. So there'll be numerous locations where the adjacent neighbors can come and walk through to that park area on the site and to enjoy the riparian area as well. The red dashed lines illustrate proposed trail network. There'll be a few other features at the corner of Heatherbell and Lagoon. We're proposing a viewing platform at the high point of the site, so you can view down across the site and towards the ocean. There's also the existing heritage orchard, which has been rejuvenated over the past year and will be a amenity. Next slide. We've done extensive view analysis of the site, and I'm not going to go into it in much detail. We do have some illustrations here that show basically helped us in developing where the buildings would be located. And as Leo had mentioned, we actually have reduced some building heights. We had some significantly higher buildings at first, and we've taken them down to really work within what was originally proposed in the OCP. We've moved buildings around really to try to mitigate any effect on existing properties on-site and off-site. And the bottom, just that last slide, the bottom one there shows that the taller buildings do work within the tree line of Royal Roads. The slide shows some character sketches of what the development could look like. It's going to be very high-quality development and match, if not improve, what's currently on-site. We're going to be looking at incorporating natural materials, stone and wood, as well as extensive glazing within the new buildings. And also the taller buildings will be sculpted at the top and terraced to really mitigate the perceived height. And finally, this is a character sketch that shows what the development along Heather Bell could be an opportunity for commercial to be there, which would service commercial, which would be accessible to the neighbors, really to activate the sidewalk and pedestrian realm, and an opportunity for you to get out and meet your neighbors. There's also some images along the top of what the the buildings could look like. And I think I'll pass it on now back to Leo. Oh, sorry, to Ian.
Thanks. And just in a quick summary then, we believe that the proposed amendments to the CD6 zone really they fairly balance the needs and desires of the community, the residents of Ocean Grove, the city of Colwood, and ourselves as the developer. And I can tell you the project will be a top quality and well-planned project, and it will be well executed. The project will continue to generate significant benefits for the community and the city of Colwood, and Ocean Grove is smart growth.
Are there any clarifications required by members of council? Seeing none, then I'll open that to the public. Again, just a reminder, please, folks, to state your name and address clearly. Feel free. It seems to be a little better if you take the mic out and actually hold it, if possible. So let's try that and see if we can manage to get those folks in the very back of the room. I think you'll give me the high sign if we need to adjust back there. So thanks. So with that, we'll the first person to the mic, please. Judy?
Hi, my name is Judith Allen, 3333 Anchorage. Can you hear me back there? Okay. You can tell by the turnout here that this is a really important thing for this community. We love our area. We love the lagoon area. We love the area. We love the lagoon area. It's very precious to us, and we want to make sure that this development is done in a way that preserves the lagoon and also preserves the way that we live in the area, both in the Portsmouth area and the lagoon area. And we've got some fairly serious concerns about these amendments and how the developments that are being put forward. And I know there are many people who want to speak tonight, so I'm just going to say a few things that I feel are really vital that need to be changed in this. First one is I believe that we need to complete all the community amenities within 2 years of the start of the project. In the amendment, it's when 350 new units are built. And that could be 10 years from now, or it could be never. If the development falters or fails, we may get none of these developments, and then the city and us as taxpayers are responsible to repair the roads or to upgrade the roads. The second thing is that we complete temporary sidewalk on Heather Bell before any construction begins in order to protect the school kids.
Folks, I can appreciate your enthusiasm, but please, we must remain respectful throughout the whole entire process. So I would kindly ask you to refrain from clapping, cheering, or booing, or hissing, or any of those events. Thank you.
Before the construction begins, in order to protect the school kids from the trucks that will be accessing this site. It should be on the Royal Road side of Heather Bell, so the kids can walk directly along Heather Bell and then up Lagoon without having to cross in front of any of the trucks that turn from Lagoon onto Heather Bell or that turn off Heather Bell into the construction site. Another thing is that we really need an alternative emergency access egress road out onto Lagoon, because for the Portsmouth residents, in addition to the people in Ocean Grove, because if something happens on Heather Bell, if there's a tree or an accident, if a tree comes down or there's an accident, there's no way for the residents to get out. There's no way for the people beyond the Ocean Grove to get out. We really need some other way for the residents to get out of the area if Heatherbell is blocked by a tree or an accident, or if we have a need for evacuation, which could happen with a gas leak or a fire or a tsunami alert. It will be a disaster trying to get out of the area, trying to get out Heatherbell, and even trying to get up Lagoon. There are going to be, at the end of it, probably 1,000 homes in that area, all trying to get out one road. And then there's the rest of the Lagoon area, too, which will also be trying to get out. A third thing is, it has to do with the fact that we've already had a bankruptcy in that area. I would like to see us make security deposits for each unit irrevocable in the case of bankruptcy, or to ensure that Colwood is a preferred vendor so taxpayers aren't on the hook if the development should falter or to fail. The last thing that I wanted to mention is that we really need to do proper protection of the riparian areas. And I know this is going to come further down the road, but it's important to determine this now, because the cleanup from the excavations that happen can easily pollute the streams that go into the lagoon, and this can damage the lagoon habitat severely and endanger the bird sanctuary. And we really need to consider all these things very seriously, because we have only one chance to do this right and to ensure that this development is done in the way that benefits Colwood and the lagoon area. Thank you.
No. We'll hold off on the applause. Thanks, folks. Thank you, Judy. Next, please. We have a whole room full of people. Come on up.
With this, I'm just thank you very much for the presentation. It's a very lovely development. I do want to point out that you were talking about two.
Can we get name and address, please? Sorry.
My name's Pete Blake. I live at 3163 Heatherbell Road. I've been a resident there since 1992. Had a long time to kind of look at what happens in that neighborhood. I do, as again, appreciate the development. I think it is a really nice plan that you've got here. There is a density measure that you did not quite mention, and that I still did not see enough reassurances that it was properly taken care of, and that was the traffic. The original plan that had it was 585 homes or residences there. And I think you also included in the report that already the lagoon has been enhanced to handle the additional traffic. But with the proposed stuff that you're talking about, 795, assuming that people are going to have more than one car, and I'm going to say that maybe 20% of those families are going to have an additional car, 2 cars. That brings it basically up to 1,000 cars that will be in that area. I call that an incredible density measure. My concern is that in going forward, that I would like to see that the traffic is looked at a lot more closely. I did not see anything in here that reassured me that traffic is going to be handled very well on the choke point, that is that distance between Machosen Road and the Heatherbell Road. That's a nice little twisty turny road, and if you've ever been through that road in the middle of winter, if you've got icy conditions, you can quickly find that you're going to have some nasty accidents while everybody is just waiting to turn left onto Heatherbell Road. So I think that it's very necessary then, looking at the plan, to ask the questions, has the traffic analysis actually been done to take into account what happens in that particular area in the worst conditions that are there. Having lived here through a few storms, I know that road gets a little closed. It gets a little hard to go up to. In fact, we end up staying at home simply because it's very difficult to navigate that whole little twisty-turny. So I encourage the council to consider that when making their decision. Thank you very much.
Before we get on to the next person, folks, I'm not reading. Is it coming through? No. Now, hello? Now my mic's not working. I'm sensing a bit of awkwardness, folks, with where people are standing backs to. So I'm just going to see if maybe this next speaker could position themselves so their backs are maybe to the screen here or the screen that side. You're not getting anything, Pat? Can you check that one out? We're not getting any sound.
There. Oh.
Did you break your knee?
Maybe. Yes.
Did you?
No. I don't know.
Is that, yeah. Yeah, for some reason the mute button was on there. Councillor Martin.
I tried.
Anyways, let's try this, folks, and see if it's a little bit better, because you get, like, in speaking, you're actually supposed to be addressing council, but I know the awkwardness of having your back to a multitude of people. So let's try this and see if this works.
Okay, John Teasdale, 3304 Joanne Place. I've lived in Colwood for 50 years. I think the reason for this amendment, the only thing I can see is greed. And the 1,000 units that they're talking about, it's a little bit more actually, because there's that 3 acres on the bottom side, plus the Coast Collective has zoning for 300 to 400 units. So we're up around 1,200, I think. But there is a lot of competition. It's going to be a slow process because you just look down Latoria or in the pit there. But I had some questions at the last meeting that weren't answered. And one is, are you going to put up great big buildings right in front of our faces? Or are you going to be a good neighbor, and, maybe, keep it a little bit lower wherever the existing homes are, and then, work them bigger as you go down the slope a little bit towards the middle. And the other one was, there are hundreds and hundreds of gravel truck loads of goo on that property. What do you think is going to happen to our houses when that gravel trucks start pulling that crap off of the property to build? We're going to get covered in muck, our windows and our stucco. It's just going to be a gong show, I think. Anyway, I've dealt with gravel trucks all my life. And I think that if somebody doesn't live in the area of the lagoon, they shouldn't really have a vote on this, because it's our neighborhood. And, well, I guess it's an open meeting, but I think we're the ones that it affects. So that's my thought.
Thank you, Mr. Teasdale. Let's remember, folks, we are addressing the content of the bylaws that are before us. Thank you.
Is this still on?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, Your Worship and Council. My name is David DeFer. I live on 223 Portsmouth Drive. I've been in the area for a couple of years. I think it's a lovely concept, and I'm not against the idea of the design in general. It's the concept of traffic that disturbs me the most, especially considering there's 3 different development proposals going on simultaneously. And also, there seems to be no real direct addressing the development of Heather Bell itself. And I agree with the previous speaker or previous speakers, that there needs to be a sidewalk, certainly on the Royal Road side early on, to protect children, but to protect any of the pedestrians, not just children. The road is dangerous at night, especially in the winter. And even when you're turning northbound, when you're coming up Lagoon Road, the turn is actually a blind turn because you're facing uphill, and it's hard to see because of the way the road bends. So I think there's some major considerations that need to be taken in terms of repairing or adjusting Heather Bell Road to accommodate such a large influx of traffic, because it's going to be significant. Now, I would expect that this development won't happen, in less than maybe a 10 or 15-year time frame, because I can't see, that many units being built and being bought in anything less than like 10 or 15 years. However, we do need to make sure that the roads are attended to. It's so plainly obvious that the density is increasing dramatically in that area, and if you're not attending to the traffic, it's negligent. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Try and stand over here. David Shanks, 215 Goldfinch Road. Couple of issues. I would like the developers, as they roll it out, it's not going to, as the previous speakers have said, it's not going to happen overnight, but to reconsider this adjustment in the plan here. And if they can move back to having a continuous flow in and out of Goldfinch, it will be a better traffic flow. The other thing it'll do is, as if their plan was to really build upscale housing in this lower area as they get to that stage of development, in my mind, upscale is 800,000 plus, that sort of pricing. And I'd urge the developers and council to think about that, because, again, with enhancing the entrance here, as they've planned to enhance the entrance up off Heatherbell, this could lift the tone and the perspective of the whole site, and may actually be better off from a financial point of view for all the stakeholders, as well as making the site more attractive. When you go from this plan to this, and here you have a view down to spectacular site into the groves, the mountains, the ocean, the lagoon, and everything else, and you now plug in high-density housing with the road behind it, what leaps to mind is taking a chunk of West Hills and then sticking a road behind it. If you had a property, say, building out onto the Bear Mountain or a Colwood golf course, you have a property backing out on the fairway. Well, now what we're going to do is going to put a road between you and that fairway or that view. We can have parking along there. We can have utility trucks. These are just some thoughts I urge the developer to keep in mind in terms of the tone and the setting. To reiterate what a lot of people said about Heatherbell, there's same issues egressing Goldfinch, which will affect some of the traffic, as Heatherbell, plus one more. You've got a blind turn going and coming, but unlike up at Heatherbell, at Goldfinch, you have on-street parking here, so the people coming up that slope, which again has some challenges in weather, cannot see what's coming up Lagoon until they nose out almost to the middle of the road to see around cars and vehicles and bus stops that are parked there. So this could be a real issue in terms of safety and traffic backup and everything else. So whatever they could do about that in their future development thinking, I think is very important, and mirrors some of the issues that have already been brought up about the corner at Heatherbell. One last thing, it may be minor. I'm curious as to the source of the specifications for the pathways through the park area, and what is the reasoning behind them, or the reference, or what sort of research is done. I believe they are described as to be wide, hard-surfaced, with bollard lights. To me, that means they have not asked any of the present users. They have not taken a look at the people who use the Galloping Goose, because the best areas of the Galloping Goose, for those who ride or run on it, are the cinder-covered, narrower, lots of greenery around it. So to propose these sort of things suggests this is not, the homework hasn't been done, or they're unknowledgeable, because I doubt if the developer is interested in picking up higher pathway costs when they could keep it on the basis of a simpler pathway, cinder paths, as most of the people prefer them, the users of the Galloping Goose, that's their favorite part of it, and go for lower capital costs, lower maintenance, and less environmental impact. So it would seem to be a chance to win and enhance it at the same time. Thank you very much.
Arnold Rassander, 211 Portsmouth Drive. I was through the original development with Quattro in some detail, as probably many of you remember. One of the things we were told then, and we were sold on, was the fact that we could have high density and small footprints. We seem to have forgotten that and gone to building on all of the open space, or significant amount of the open space. That's something that we've done. I really have to say that most of my remarks and the remarks of anybody that's here are basically falling on dead ears, because this whole thing has already been decided. The development permits have been written up, and in a few minutes they will be voted on. And unless this council is different than all the rest that have been here, there won't be hardly two dots changed on that agreement, which is already in place. And I think one of the things that's problematic with that agreement is the amenities and when they're to be installed. I would say that if they want to have 350 units built, then we start from ground zero and we count the number of units that are currently built and say that's one, and then how many are then, and where are we? To wait till another 350 are built before we start to get any of these amenities is total ludicrous. Luckily, before the last developer went broke, we got a very, very nice sidewalk from the corner of Heatherbell and Lagoon all the way to the top. And I'm sure that you all appreciate that. But to have these developments wait for years before we get any of those things, I think is something that should be moved forward. The other thing, which I know nobody can answer, is this will drastically change the number of sewer units that we've got allocated to this property, and I'm sure that Mr. Baxter will be recalculating those. Finally, this development and the houses in it are much like the rest of Colwood, and that home-based businesses can be in all of these homes. And so we may have not just the number of residents, but also the, quote, home-based businesses. And if you go to the end of Portsmouth Drive, you find a very nice home-based business with 3 full accommodations and 7 additional bedrooms being rented out, and you have about 15 cars in the cul-de-sac and a huge amount of traffic. That is a home-based business. I call it a motel, a hotel, a resort. Thank you.
Gail Johnston, 245 Shipsview Place. Good evening, Mayor Hamilton and councillors. As you face this contentious issue,
Testing this. Okay, so if you hold your mouth about there.
Thank you, Michael. Is that better? Good evening, Mayor Hamilton and councillors. As you face this contentious issue, I, unlike Arnold, would like to think that you are all coming into this hearing with open minds. I hope you will really listen to our concerns and work for us and with us for a better Colwood. We are not against this development and would like to see Ocean Grove finished, but it is time for you to stand up to the developer and take a stronger position negotiating on behalf of the residents and taxpayers. I have 3 major concerns. Timing. It's all about the timing of amenities with this project. The Community amenities, which include permanent curbs, sidewalks, and lighting on Goldfinch, Seafield, and Lagoon, should happen concurrently with the development of roads, curbs, and lighting in the development, or certainly within the 2-year maximum of adoption of rezoning. The Planning and Land Use Commission makes sure that we, as Joe citizens doing a development, have to add curbs and sidewalks concurrently with any new rezoning we have done. The improvements and changes to Lagoon and Machosen Road happening within 12 months of the final zoning should also include the signalization at the same time. Signalization is key to safety near Sangster School and to keep the extra volume of construction traffic flowing. We all know that time is money, and money is at historically low interest rates for the foreseeable future. We have no way of knowing if this developer will ever finish 350 units, or even the 3 towers with commercial space adjacent to Heatherbell. Your current appendix, Off-Site Infrastructures Upgrades, number B, states that these towers must be ready for occupancy before Heatherbell receives its permanent upgrades, curbs, sidewalks, lighting, and parking bays. In other words, Heatherbell will remain as is with only a temporary sidewalk for the foreseeable future. All the while, construction traffic from Ocean Grove and Pacific Landing are using it and Lagoon Road to be funneled up to the top of the hill. Number 2, there is no provision now or in the future for a more direct emergency access or egress if needed. The path already exists through the park and into Ocean Grove and is used by many pedestrians and cyclists on a daily basis from Anchorage to Seafield. Let's work together to widen this path and upgrade the bridge. This is our last opportunity, so do your job and plan for the future. What price do you put on lives in almost 1,000 households? Because that's what we're going to have down there. Sorry, but I'm not gifted. I can't just get up here and speak like the last guy from Goldfinch. I insist that you make all the security deposits irrevocable or somehow legally guaranteed to protect the city and its taxpayers from default, bankruptcy, or whatever else could happen to prevent this developer from completing all required off-site works. No matter how good this developer's financial reports look on paper, I do not know or trust that he will follow through with our amenities. As Colwood residents, we have seen too many failed projects. A Quattro is a prime example. We do not want to be back in the same predicament 5 years from now with a new council, new planning department staff, and a new developer asking once again for our promised amenities. If this developer was supportive to reschedule our amenities so they are all completed in a maximum of 2 years after adoption of this plan, rather than waiting for 350 units or longer, it would definitely show his commitment and good faith to this community. I urge you all to continue working just a little harder and longer, knowing you have strong public support to renegotiate with the developer for more changes. Let's ensure we get it right for Colwood this time around. So in conclusion, I ask you to vote no to this development the way it is currently written. I look forward to another public hearing in a few months once these kinks are worked out. Thank you.
Again, folks, reminder.
Does this work? Stuart Parkinson, 3230 Selleck Way. There's a whole bunch of issues with this development, and I'm going to try and stick to my comments on just 3 of them. And surprisingly, probably to council, I'm not going to go on and on about my concern with the ownership of the trails and riparian being turned over to the community association or the stratas, and that's only because I think that those are issues separate from the rezoning that we can come to council as often as we want and as long as we want until we finally get a decent hearing on it. Sorry about that. I'll try to talk a little bigger. So the 3 things I would like to talk about are the implementation of the riparian, the single-family housing, and Seafield Road. Like everybody in the room, I think I'm really quite enamored by the concept of the riparian zone coming through the middle of the site. The thought of actually getting some salmon to swim upstream and take my grandkids down there to watch that is quite exciting to me. So I like that idea. I've liked it since day one. I like that it's still there. The issue I have is on the implementation. I think, I'll look at my notes, but I can't do both at the same time. I think it says that within 12 months or so, the existing riparian areas have to be upgraded and then presumably turned over to the city for maintenance for a while until there's 150 units built, at which time the upper portion of the riparian area is supposed to be completed and then again turned over to hopefully the city. Perhaps if I'm not successful by then, perhaps it's the community. But the issue that I think is going to be a little frustrating to people is that in the first time frame until the 150 more units are built, you're going to be dealing with sort of bits and pieces of a riparian zone. There's going to be a little bit that exists now that'll be brought up to standard, I'm sure. But then it'll stop where there isn't any development, and then it'll start again, and then it'll really go nowhere because we all know water goes downstream, and the bottom half of this is within the park and is not scheduled for a while. So that's going to be some maintenance for one wonders what. And again, after the 150 more units are built in 4 or 5 years, whatever it may be, you have the same thing. You'll have more area that's finished and constructed and being maintained in some fashion, but it won't be the full system. It won't be functional. It won't go down to the lagoon. So when will it go down to the lagoon? That's the question. When will it actually be functional? And I think the number, again, I do better check my notes here. Yeah, 475 units. When 475 units are built, then it's expected that it will be constructed all the way down to the lagoon. So when are 475 units going to be built? Well, it's a little hard to back calculate that, but the only information I found, which is was somebody's guess at the time or somebody's knowledge at the time, was in the traffic assessment. The traffic assessment was based on the zoning of 85 single-family houses, 86 townhouses, so that's 171. Most likely the ground-orientated single-family townhouses are going to be built first, so let's say those are the first ones. Zoning allows 251 low, which is the 4- and 6-story buildings, maybe the 8-story building. So that gets you to 422 units. So still, we're not at the point of completing the riparian zone. When are we at the point of completing the riparian zone? When they start the towers, 12-story towers. When are 12-story towers going to be built? Well, we all have different thoughts on that. Colwood's been zoning sites for 12-story and higher towers for 10 or 15 years, at least in my experience, and have built 0. We've seen the experience with Silkwinds, not very good. We've seen the experience at Colwood Corners. There's a site on Souk Road, I think was the first one to be zoned. Absolutely nothing's happened on that. There was the Michelle. There was one on Nob Hill Road. I think both Royal Bay and Olympic View have sites for towers. So maybe someday towers will make sense in Colwood, according to the market. Maybe someday towers will get built in Colwood. Maybe this site will attract some of the first towers in Colwood. But I don't know when that's going to be. But my guess is 30 years. And, some people may be a little more optimistic or delusional or whatever. They may say it's less than that. But I don't think I'm taking my grandkids down to watch fish swim upstream. I think my great-grandkids are pushing me down in a wheelchair to have a look at it. So, again, just think about that. That's what the documents you have in front of you say. That's what they mean. Is that what you want them to mean? Because, again, we've talked about what are the amenities the community likes, and I think that's one that we have 100% support on in the community. So I would like to see it done quicker. Maybe not so much if I got stuck with the bill to look after it all, but I think we should recognize that a riparian zone where the top half is built and maintained for 30 years before it becomes functional creates just a lot of frustration and expense, and maybe isn't the way to go. The second issue I wanted to talk about was single-family houses. I know there's differing thoughts on the single-family homes and duplexes. I frankly don't have much of a problem with them. I recognize that development's not an easy game, and guys got to make some money, and these are probably the most attractive to the marketplace today, certainly more attractive than towers. So The zoning bylaw allows up to 85 single-family homes on lots as small as 300 square meters. All the plans we've seen, including the one presented to council by your planning department December 15th last year, that was written to answer the November 10th council motion requesting a full representation of the subdivision lots, show 20 lots off of Goldfinch only. Bylaw is quite clear. Sketches and plans included are representational only and subject to change, so I believe we should expect the 85 lots allowed in Area 7 and 8 will get built. I wouldn't blame him if he did. And again, I think that's where the market is. So as I said, I don't particularly object to them in Area 7. I think they're tucked out of the way. They're not really going to affect anything like that. My concern is the 20 small lots right next to the location. We had another gentleman talking about those too. I just think that's such a fantastic site. I don't know why you would do it in small lots. The reality of small lot development is they have to all be built basically at the same time. You can't put your siding on your house unless you put your scaffolding or your ladder on the neighbor's lot. So they're all going to get built the same. By necessity, there's a fair net of sameness to them. I just think in that location, it's such a beautiful location. Why wouldn't you have larger lots, allow some custom homes, a little more variety, and fit into the site a little better? So that's my concern. And then the third thing I want to talk about was Seafield Road. Seafield Road is projected for an upgrade, and we've seen numbers like $1.5 million. Spending $1.5 million on Seafield Road is just, it seems crazy to me. Certainly nobody would spend their own money to do that. If we looked at the rest of the roads in Colwood that are the same standard as Seafield Road and projected doing the same upgrade to them, we'd be talking hundreds of millions of dollars. So my initial thought on that was there's got to be some happy medium, a little bit of negotiation where Seafield gets tittled up a little bit, but maybe not the full meal deal, but something that's better than it is now, but not going to that expense. But when I went through the binders that your staff put out, they put out, you probably all know this, and you probably all know this too, but there's 2 binders of information on the project, and I read some of the letters from the Seafield Road people, and in it they had the covenants that I have on my property. I'm sure I didn't go back to check. I know I should have. And the covenants state this is what's going to be done on Seafield Road. It's going to get built just like we're talking about. Going to cost $1.5 million or whatever it's going to cost. And so the question is, that was known information when the receiver was trying to sell this land. You know, everybody knew that. Every developer looked at it and said, well, you know, I'm going to do this work and it's going to cost me this much money, so I'm going to pay the developer or the receiver that much less for the property. So to me, it looks like the money's already been spent. The bank just got diddled out of that much more money. So I've come around to the other saying, and I can now walk down Seafield with my head up high, that I think the upgrades should be done on Seafield. They've been committed to, and for quite some time. I think the covenants on title should be adhered to. So I'm supportive of them after giving it some thought. So those are the 3 points I want to talk about. I know there's lots of others from other people here tonight. Thank you. Thank you.
Doug, can you please use the microphone there? I know you can use the microphone. I know you have a voice, but that'll help for the folks that are in.
But you take the whole line.
If you pull it right out, there you go, and then you can just stand back against the map, and you don't have to feel so uncomfortable with your back to anybody.
Okay. Can you hear me out of that? Folks, I already sent a email to City Hall, so I'm not going to stand up here and repeat what I said to them. They know where I stand. I'm not against development, but the way this project is being presented, I am against it. I think the increase in density from 585 to 700 and something is, well, Arnold used the word early, ludicrous. It's just too much for that place. We see traffic now increasing going just into Pacific Center on a daily basis. The people that are parking their cars on Heatherville facing south, who are walking their dogs, when they leave, they U-turn. Most of them U-turn without looking. I saw one yesterday. This goes on. That's now. So once we add this to it, what's going to happen? Except that it's going to happen on Lagoon, everywhere around. We're going to get gridlocked, and that's going to be an unfortunate situation. However, something can always be done to overcome that. That shouldn't be a problem. There's a couple of points made already that I think are worth just saying quickly. Is the rentals possibility is real, and most people today are putting some sort of suite into their house, and that may not double the density of your units, but it'll certainly add to them, and that means cars as well as people. The amenities, I agree. I don't put in I think it should be changed to a time frame rather than the amount of amenities or amount of units that are being built, so that when a certain drop-dead date appears, Colwood is able to say to you, what's up? Where's our amenities, whatever they're going to be? And given a time, you're working against the time, they're working against the time, and hopefully we get it done properly. I don't know, when Arnold and Gail spoke, Arnold was saying that the deal's been done. I certainly hope not. If it has, well, more fool us. We elected a bad bunch of people to run us. So anyway, Gail, I hope you're right. Arnold, I'm afraid you might be. Thank you very much.
And before you get away, Mr. McDougall, can I confirm your address is 288 Portsmouth?
Yes.
For the benefit of recording.
Along with Arnold in my life.
Well, on that note, just a reminder, folks, that this is not a decision-making meeting. This is a public hearing to hear from you so that we as council can go away from this and think about what's been said. If we need to get any further information, we can do that in this next stretch of time, and we will be having our discussion of council on the 13th of April. So just to make sure that everybody is aware that when this meeting concludes, there is no decision of anything at that time. Next speaker, please.
Silvestrovich, 3360 Ocean Boulevard.
Need that microphone right up.
I am not going to discuss specifics of this project because I am sure that there are people who are much more knowledgeable about this, and it's very difficult to say if 200 units this way or that way makes any difference. I was at the meeting when a Quattro was approved and nobody was really much worried about the increasing traffic. But I would like to bring to your attention the fact, I moved to Colwood 10 years ago. For 10 years, we had bus service, direct, 2 buses going in the morning downtown, 2 buses coming back in the evening. This was canceled this year, and I phoned and tried to find out why. And I was told because this area is practically not growing, the buses are not used, they go empty, and generally speaking, I think the whole concept of building, developing this new development, I think is, I think we all will benefit, and of course many people express concerns about the traffic. Well, if we get a bus service again back, the traffic will be probably better, not worse. And hopefully with new development, the bus service will come back to this area, direct bus service to downtown. So I will be the one to say that over these 10 years, more and more Langford is becoming a poor cousin, Colwood is becoming a poor cousin of Langford, where every project takes off and develops. We don't see bankruptcies as we see one after another in Colwood. So I think we should try to be as helpful as possible. Of course, we should put some safeguards, perhaps deposits, make sure that we don't see another bankruptcy. But I don't think we should fight this 100 units this way or that way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Darrell Roth. I live at 252 Seafield Road. And my main concerns are just the traffic pattern, the street pattern going through the site there. I really feel that there should be another access, at least one more going through the site to allow for an alternate exit, emergency exit, just regular flow of traffic, so that everything does not go out on Heather Bell. And we also have to think of what's going to happen when they work on Heather Bell. Where are they going to go when Heather Bell is chopped up? You know, what are we going to do to get in and out? And that's the one concern. And the other one is the timing of the streets around the site. And I'd rather have it done a lot sooner rather than waiting for the 350 units. And I've spoken about this in the past, and I have done some thinking about it, and the one thing that that comes to my mind is that I do have a lot of sympathy for the developers, because it's not an easy site. I think there's a lot of opportunities on the site, but it's not a standard evolution of a city. There's no the street systems that are there are very substandard. I'm talking about Seafield Road and Goldfinch. Normally you would have that whole thing filled up with houses and with a mature street pattern all the way around there. And when those have been there for 30, 40 years, a developer would buy them all up and densify it, and they'd have an existing mature street to work with. They wouldn't have to do that many upgrades on it. But I feel sympathy for this developer coming to the table and having to do all of these upgrades. So that's coming into my mind, and I'm thinking that. But then counterbalancing that is the fact that it's a great opportunity to have carte blanche, to whatever to work with. And it's also, he's catapulting the evolution. He's going to a higher density without even going through a time of low density. So he's given an opportunity and a tremendous discount on the property. So to my thinking, you should be able to come to the table and at least put together upgrades on the surrounding streets to bring them up to a municipal standard. And that would be my argument, because it would be the same as anyone else, developer buying a big chunk of land that already has houses on it and densifying it, and then putting, making their money that way. So, and in the other thing that I think was a big a hardship for the developer on this one is the riparian zone. And I know that it's going to be more expensive to put bridges across there to have a street system going from one side to the other, but I think that is an absolute necessity as a secondary exit route. And while I have sympathy for the developer, I think that the riparian zone itself is a conceit. It's a fabricated item. It's not there now. Like the rest of it, it was somebody's doodle on a sketch, and that's the fact of the matter. So if we have that, if we put it there, and if they get the benefit of having those ponds there in the future and the saleability of it, then I believe that they should come up with the money to pay for bridges, at least one or another one, to go across the site, because they have the added value of the ponds. So those are my observations. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Christine Boniadi. We are living on 3511 Aloha. Everybody's talking just about Heather Bell, but what about Ocean Boulevard? What about the bridge? There are anyway difficulties to maintain it, and we have wildlife coming through the forest.
Need that microphone up close, please.
Okay.
Christine.
We have problems with wildlife. I mean, it's another danger when you supposedly think that people might, instead of using Machosen Road, use Ocean Boulevard and a small bridge. So it's another issue, I think. And also, that's very emotional. Can you imagine having these towers in front of you when you drive down Heather Bell? Not a nice view anymore. Thank you.
May Alexandria, I'm at 320 Lagoon Road, and I've been sitting out on my balcony quite a bit lately, and it's become quite the racetrack already. Sorry, I'm at 320 Lagoon Road, right on the corner of Heather Bell and Lagoon, so no matter what, I'm going to be seeing a lot of cars. I feel like there's already 950 homes down there, and at the beginning, when I attended the first meeting with the first developer, he tried to sell us on the idea that it's going to be rich people without cars, retired people without cars. I don't know where those retired people are. Senior citizens aren't in rocking chairs knitting anymore. They usually have 2 cars, boats, campers, what have you. I don't think anyone who's really wealthy would want to sit on the bus for an hour and a half, 2 hours to get up to the ferry. So I'm pretty sure everyone's going to drive. I hate to disagree with the last lady, but I think we want to see the traffic going down Ocean Boulevard. It's going to sound callous, but I'd rather see a deer hit than a child. I don't think all those 1,500 cars should be going up to the school. There's already parents up there dropping off their kids. It's congested as it is. I don't know what we're thinking. We need 2 entrances and exits to this complex, not just for the safety of the people that are going to live in Ocean Grove. If there is a log across Heather Bell and Granny's having a heart attack in there, who's she going to sue when emergency vehicles couldn't get in because the only road to the development was blocked? I think it's almost negligent not to have some emergency exit for those people. And like I said, I don't know if we need speed bumps or what we need, but I think we want to somehow get the traffic going down Ocean Boulevard. If we have an exit at Goldfinch, maybe people would go left instead of going up to the school. So that's my concern. I hope it's not a done deal. That first commenter is scaring me there. I hope that's not the way things work in Colwood. Thank you.
Good evening, Council and Mayor Hamilton. My name's Carolyn Sly, and I live on 3155 Marine View Place. And my concern is regarding the sidewalks that are not even present yet on Heather Bell Road. There are a lot of children that use Heather Bell Road to get to and from the school at the top of the hill, Sangster, as well as Dunsmuir. And also there are numerous pedestrians that use the road to get to Coast Collective, which is also going to be developed in the near future. And apparently, according to this present plan, there aren't going to be any upgrades to Heather Bell Road as far as sidewalks go. I think this is crucial that this has to happen before this development gets built. There are people that use the top of Heather Bell to get in and out of Royal Roads for pleasure, Royal Roads being one of the last green spaces in Colwood that is used by other municipalities and people around the area. And that's my biggest concern, is the safety of the whole community. It's a great area, and I know it's going to change. I understand that, and I hope it changes for somewhat of the better. I really liked what Gail Johnson was saying about the changes that need to happen before this development goes forward. And thank you. I don't want any children to be injured because this didn't happen before. There isn't even a curb to prevent cars from knocking a kid off the road there, the way it is now. And the street lights along there are very minimal. In the evening, it's dark. You need to wear lights and reflective gear, so that's my concern. Thank you.
Al Marston, 205 Portsmouth Drive. It's a nice place. Yeah, Mr. Rossander's just down the street from me. So my concerns regarding this development are really, traffic is a huge concern. Now that we've got the Coast Collective development, Heatherbell is the only way in and out. This whole project has to have a second method of egress. I'm the last person down at the end of Portsmouth, so when the big tsunami comes, I need a way to get out. You know, there's going to be a whole lot of people down there. Just keep it at that. Maybe the density works if there's two entrances, but my biggest concern there is with the density. The other one is the riparian area and work. Guess what? Selleck Creek borders my property, and I have no idea what's going to be done to maintain the creek as it is or prevent my property from being damaged by a whole pile of water wanting to come down Selleck Creek. The other one is, I don't know how the sewage system works in the area, but outside my front door, I look at the big poo pump. And I have concerns about, what goes downhill, and I don't want it landing in my yard. So I don't know how that's going to work with this development. So those are my concerns. I hope you take that into consideration. Thanks.
Good evening. Getting this mic right. You can hear that? Hi, everybody. I'm Russ Trace. I live at 306 3230 Selleck Way. I'm a Ocean Grove resident. And good evening to the developers and Mayor and Council. I just want to address one item to start with. I was here to speak against a single family. I didn't really want to look at it. Now tonight I notice in the architect's drawings that it's 3 stories instead of 2, which I was anticipating they were working their viewscapes over. And so I can say I'm not happy with that. I can see why they need it. They're small lots and they need those extra bedrooms upstairs, whatever. So that's a bit of a problem. Before tonight, I didn't know there was a covenant that Seafield Road had to be built. It's a bit of news to me. Spending $1.5 million on that road is just a huge benefit to a few people and at a huge sacrifice to the rest of us. Everybody on Lagoon Road, I feel sorry for you. The money's being spent on the wrong side of the property. And for those of us losing a couple $100,000 of our pathway donated to Seafield Road, that's another benefit that we all lose and somebody else gains, because I don't think too many of us will be using Seafield Road. So, thank you. Anybody else? Take this with me or not.
Good evening, Mayor Hamilton and Council. My name is Charles Grenko. I live at 277 Lagoon Road. See all those kids? I'm not going to reiterate all the excellent points that were brought up tonight, especially the children. I see a lot of the kids walking on non-sidewalked roads in front of my house. It's just my wife and I were retired, so it has no immediate impact onto us other than, fearing for the children out there. We were told before that they were going to do improvements on that. Unfortunately, Quatros went bankrupt before that could happen. I agree totally that these things have to be done before we start getting big trucks on there and everything else. Another point I'd like to bring up, and this is me speaking partially selfishly to it, is looking in your comments in here about views, 25.4.2, existing views from off-site through or over the site are to be maintained as far as possible. Example, minimize existing view loss for people along Lagoon, Goldfinch, and Seafield Road. When I take a look at the excellent diagrams that our developers published here, and you see the red and the yellow and the green and the orange, and all of a sudden I see three excessive buildings that are being proposed here. An area where it's 4-story buildings is now going to 8. That's the 2 up in the orange area here. And then another one along that red section right in the middle is going from 4 to another 2 more stories on top. That's right in the middle of the property. Talk about affecting your site views. I have nothing against progress and putting people in there, and I'm ready to consent along with the developer. I'm part of this. And in their statement, they said, we have reduced a number of these building sizes. Wow, I would really like to know exactly what that number is. And how is that, those ones that they've reduced, how do they affect us immediate residents that live next door to the development here? Anyway, Your Honor, folks, I hope that you will really take a look at the excellent points that these folks have brought up, discuss it, and also for future development of Colwood, outside some of the stuff that the developer is doing, you know where some of the needs mean to go. Thank you very much for your time.
I'm Ron Hornby. I live at 3332 Anchorage Avenue. And some of my main concerns is, everybody's been saying about sidewalks on Goldfinch and Heatherbell. Let's look at Lagoon Road. There's a big section of sidewalk there going down there, which is no sidewalk. You got a short sidewalk and a great big large area with no sidewalk. I go down the hill with my grandson, take him for a walk, and there's a very large area where we have to run the buggy down the road. So if we're concerned about this building site, more traffic and everything else, that's something we need to look at, is get that sidewalk in. Another thing is the traffic. When I was here in 96, when we had the big snow and all that sort of stuff, first things to stop running down there, everybody says people take the buses. 0 buses. It still happens today. We got a snowfall, the buses don't come down. One of the easiest ways out for us is across the bridge and up the other side, Fort Rod Hill. Easier grade. Even though that corner's a little bit sharp, it's an easier grade to go up and out. So my concern is making sure we keep that way well open. And we're looking at, the other thing is the number of parking we got in there. Everybody talk about retired people. Every single person I know that's retired has 2 cars. So, myself, I got 2 cars. I also got a motorhome in my yard. I also got a trailer in my yard. And we have an extra car in my yard, so there's 3 cars and that. So we're using all these things, and hey, I'm just a regular old retired person. What about the others that got the same? So you're going to build in that area. That's a problem. And my other thing is, major problem is, the amenities, I think, need to be moved up. I don't want to see them bail out and leave us stuck. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Kitty Lloyd. I don't actually live here, but I coordinate the Esquimalt Lagoon Stewardship Initiative. So we already made a presentation or a submission to you from our members in November, but there's I just wanted to. We haven't had a chance to make another coordinated response to this particular bylaw amendment, but I'm glad to hear that other people are concerned about the riparian area. That's our main concern is taking care of the riparian and making sure that one of the things I'm concerned about is maintaining the viewscapes is going to probably mean that people are going to want to keep the trees small. Well, you can't really have a really functional riparian without having full-size trees there and allowing them to grow to their normal size and having the appropriate kind of vegetation along there. I'm also concerned, or our group is concerned, about who is going to maintain that riparian area. There's talk about it being a community association, whether that's going to be all the people that live there or some of the people. And then, of course, we couldn't really figure out why is the CD1 or CD6 zone cover the whole area of the park as well, the dedicated area down at the lagoon, because that's, there's commercial activities that are going to be allowed in there. And it's not actually a park zone. It's considered a green space, which does not have the same level of protection as an actual park and can be traded for other purposes. So there's definitely concern about that as well. Another thing that we asked the former, when the Quattro was developing it, was for traffic calming along the Cobourg Peninsula. And it was at that point they were talking about traffic circles, which we understand they're very expensive, and that's not going to happen this time around. But we will put our request in for traffic calming in the form of raised crosswalks there. If 2 or 3 of those were placed along there, it would make it safer for pedestrians crossing the lagoon there, and also slow the traffic down. So thanks very much.
My name is Jeff Sutherland. I live at 3336 Ocean Boulevard. I just want to follow up with the last person's comments, and thank you for the opportunity to speak, excuse me. I think that's in the larger context of what's going on in Colwood is that Lagoon Road is well on its way to being a major arterial route. And that's just the truth. When Royal Bay gets going, we're going to see more and more traffic coming down that road and going up that road, and it's just not built for it. It really, really isn't. It's dangerous. How many people in this room can raise their hand and say, "I've been coming up it, and somebody's been coming down it across the center line"? We don't have to raise it because we all know it's true. And this is, I think, in the larger context, we have to hold our council accountable for addressing these issues, because they're not. And I know that for a fact because when we're doing the traffic consultations previously, I did ask some pointed questions of some people in the administrative side here. I'm not going to mention them. They're not here. It doesn't matter. But the reality is that there is no plan in place for dealing with the larger issues with respect to the traffic in Colwood. We can't do it. There's no places to go. It's, you're going to run into dead ends all the time. And coming back to what was supposed to happen with the Cobourg Peninsula and the traffic softening, that's never going to occur. I mean, that road is getting busier and busier. I live on it. I see it. In the 3 years I've lived here, it's become busier every year. And I think that am I against this development? Absolutely not. I think it's a great idea. But in the larger context, you people have to start addressing these big issues, and they're big issues. Your development, I don't really see. I'm not privy to it, but it certainly doesn't look much different than it was before. And maybe it's changed a bit. The issues with the roads, they have to be dealt with. You can't have kids walking up streets. You've got to fix that before you start. But the bigger issues, I think you guys have got to start showing some initiative and start showing some leadership. I'm not sure what you can do, but I think you got to start owning up to the fact that Lagoon Road is not really was never intended to be arterial, and it's well on its way to being. Thank you.
Brian Morrison, 250 Seafield Road. I've attended many meetings since the beginning with the Quattro. I share a ton of views, the same views of people here. I won't repeat them, but I haven't heard anyone here stop the project, let's not proceed. I don't think it's not so much about this following through. There has been amendments. There are things I disagree, the high density, a variety of different things. But what I'm hearing loud and clear, and I feel myself, is we need these road improvements significantly much quicker than 350 units. We all agree that 350 units could take upwards of 20 years. I'm not willing to wait, and I don't think anyone in this room is willing to wait. So I think the developer and council really need to take into consideration timelines, whether it be units or time frame. We are not willing to wait for the approachment of 3 towers that might never solidify to have road improvements for this project to be taken over by another developer possibly down the road and still have no improvements. I do disagree with one of the comments tonight regarding Seafield Road. Yes, I live there. It might be a biased opinion. But the fact of the matter is there's a few residents living on that road. It's not solely used by those residents. I can guarantee you this. A quarter of the Lagoon people that live past my house on Matilda, Shipsview, and even for that matter, Portsmouth, drive that road daily. I've got young kids. Both my neighbors have young kids. Right now, that road is not a road. It's a lane. It's much thinner than any road I've ever driven on in Colwood. To say it's to standard is wrong. I have been told to park my truck on the road, which is almost hindering traffic. It's unsafe, and it's unacceptable. We need improvements on Seafield, on Lagoon, on Heather Bell, done early in the project for the safety of our kids and the residents in the neighborhood. I hope the council, like Arnold said, will hear us loud and clear. A decision needs to be made, and I hope there's going to be a lot of input and a lot of thought put into these timelines. It's imperative. I understand the project needs to proceed slightly before they start doing major amendments to our neighborhood, but we really need to consider the safety of our neighborhood, the increased traffic, and the density in our development area, because it's really, really important. To look at this in years' time after someone's been injured, walking to school or walking down is wrong. Let's be proactive and not reactive to a situation. We need to think about this before we make a decision. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Krista McCullough, and I live on 3199 Matilda Drive. I always take Seafield down to get home, as I know many of the residents on Matilda do, and I just wanted to support Brian's comment there. I just wanted to point out, no one's mentioned the green space that they've allocated, which I do appreciate, but when I was speaking to some residents in Ocean Grove, they told me that it was only for a nesting area for birds, so that the residents wouldn't even have access to that area. I might be incorrect, but it's great to have, we all want green space that we can utilize, but we need to respect that nature needs it as well. But where are the residents from the buildings going to go? I also have concerns about the increased traffic and where the money is going to come from when there's Royal Bay and Ocean Grove developed. All of Colwood's going to need some traffic upgrade, because that's a lot more traffic coming through, and it's already really busy. And just the natural areas, if there's research been done on the foot traffic, how it will impact Royal Roads and the lagoon, and how much it can handle before it becomes a detriment to those natural spaces. Thank you.
We are, folks, an hour and a half into this. I'm looking for a second time call for anybody that wants to come forward and make comment. You're only going to get 3 requests, and then it's going to be closed. Anyone from the back of the room that's teetering on the edge of their chairs? And I don't mean leaving. Come on up and okay, there, we got a couple. I just want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity because this is the time. Thank you.
I feel like I'm an outsider. My name is Beth Mitchell. I live 3504 Aloha, and I think you've forgotten about the inadequate road that is Millburn, that as soon as development begins, the cars go down from Lagoon Road or from the Hatley-Grattan terrible intersection down Hatley Road onto Millburn to avoid the trucks and the construction traffic on Lagoon Road. And you've totally not taken that into consideration. The ditches are so deep that if you're walking down, there are no sidewalks. When cars are parked all the way down Lagoon Road in evenings and weekends, pedestrians are out in the middle of the road. That's a bus route. The bus goes down Millburn, up Lagoon. So you need to have a good look at Millburn and do a lot of improvement there. The other thing is the property that is Ocean Grove is largely marsh. It is a wetland. It's the bottom of the watershed. You put a shovel in that ground, you're going to get water. When the trucks run through the mud, they're going out on the roads. The roads have to be washed by bylaws to keep the dust down, and that goes in the storm sewers, and it ends up in the lagoon. So everything that comes off your property is going to go either through the seepages within your property or on the road when you're washing your roads off straight into the lagoon, and it will turn into a big swamp.
I know there's somebody else because 2 of you were fighting for the aisleway.
Working? Here's
Just up close to your
unanimous.
Up close, and then you're.
No good?
Yeah, now it's better.
Okay. It appears to be unanimous about the condition of the roads. Want something done before things start, and I just want to say to the developer, I'm hopeful. Obviously, you're going to need to make some money, but hopefully you can do something with the road situation before you have 350 units built, because that's 14. If you do a little bit of math, it's pretty close to 1,400 vehicles a day, one way or coming or going, and nobody in the area believes that that's safe. So hopefully you can work with us on that. Maybe 350 is a little bit high, like way too high. So maybe you can work with us on that. Maybe council heard that. It's what I'm asking. Maybe after the first 50 units.
Thank you, Mr. Teasdale. Anyone else there? There was a young lady that had you're good? So is there anything else, folks, that comes to mind that hasn't been brought up, that we haven't heard about the traffic and the riparian and the density? Is there anything else that anyone would like to? Come on back, Chris.
I just thought of one more thing, and that is if with the increase in families coming, there'll be increased children in their room in the schools surrounding area, because I'm a teacher and there's already rumors going around that there's not enough, all the growth is out this way, but there's not enough school space for the children. I don't actually know the exact numbers, but just to accommodate, how is that all going to look?
Bernard Perrin, 155 and 195 Goldfinch. I'm not against development. I'm for it. I knew it's inevitable and it was going to happen. I appreciate the developer for trying to stick as much as possible to what was agreed with the community, with a lot of debating and a lot of input before. But to council, I'm asking that the views of the people and the concerns that have been expressed so far be taken in consideration. One point was mentioned briefly, and it was with regard to the parkland at the bottom of the property. I don't think that is zoned as parkland right now. And I think with this change of developer and this these new amendments, that this is time for council to actually, rule on this one. I think most of the people in the community really enjoy this green area. They like some of the stuff that's being done with the green spaces and so on. But I believe most people in the community would like to see that being kept as parkland, and given the the safeguards that go with parkland and not commercial development, because we don't know, and that's one of the fears that I have of seeing what could happen there in the future with hot dog stands or whatever else that is not really conducive to the type of area that we live in or that we saw when we decided to move there. So for that, thank you.
Arnold, can you please come to the mic? I know.
I've been recently away for about 4 months. Came back, and I was very, very astounded when I went down Heatherbell to see on the right-hand side as I go down, cars parked almost all the way to the bottom. That's today. And those people, I believe, are taking access into railroads, trails and parks and all that sort of stuff. Will that road then be designated as no parking on there during the construction? Because if we have that kind of parking taking now, and the construction and people trying to come up with limited sidewalks or none, anyway, that was an observation, and I've observed it many, many days, not just once.
Just wanted to add, it's Darrell Roth, 252 Seafield, that I didn't say before, that I do, in fact, I am in favor of the general overall concept of the development and the density. There is an increase in the density. I'm not afraid of that, but I do think that married with that has to be the underlying infrastructure. And I see the increase in the density as a payoff, frankly, to the developer. It will overnight improve in value, increase in value once the zoning has been amended. And I see that as a payoff for providing the right infrastructure sooner rather than later, like I'm thinking in the next couple years. And I think that should go hand in hand with the increased density and the increased value that the developer will see from that. Thank you.
Anyone else? For a third and final time, is there anyone wishing to address council? Then just before we close, I will remind you that there will be no opportunity to speak or make representations to council on these bylaws between the close of this meeting coming forward and at the third reading. So on the 13th, when we have our council meeting, There is a public participation portion there. This topic will be excluded in that conversation piece. You can talk about anything else, but Ocean Grove is off the discussion table in the public participation. So with that, looking for, I will call this meeting to close the public hearing. Looking for adjournment. Council? Seconder? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. And folks, I want to thank you very much for being respectful and attentive to the speakers that were here, including the developers, as we went through this. Thank you.